5. Coogee Palace Ghost, the phantoms of the Pleasure Palace. Australia's beautiful beaches hide more than just sun and surf. Sometimes, they conceal the spectral echoes of grand ambitions and forgotten pleasures. Our final story takes us to Coogee Beach, a popular spot in Sydney, where the ruins of a once magnificent entertainment complex are said to hold a chilling secret. This is the tale of the Coogee Palace Ghost, or more specifically, the spectral residence of its former aquarium. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Coogee was a burgeoning seaside resort. To cater to the crowds, a grand structure known as the Coogee Palace was built, opening in 1887. It was an ambitious project, a lavish entertainment complex that boasted everything from a grand hall and concert venue to Turkish baths, a roller skating rink, and, most notably, a magnificent aquarium. The aquarium was a marvel of its time, filled with exotic marine life, drawing huge crowds. The Coogee Palace was designed to be a place of joy, wonder, and escape. However, its glory was short-lived. Financial difficulties, mismanagement, and perhaps even a touch of bad luck plagued the venture. The palace closed its doors around 1928, and after various attempts to revive it, the building slowly fell into disrepair. Eventually, most of it was demolished, leaving only remnants, including parts of the original aquarium structure. What was once a vibrant center of public entertainment became a desolate, skeletal reminder of a bygone era. As the Coogee Palace crumbled, and particularly after its partial demolition, the stories began. The grand dreams that had been poured into its creation seemed to have left an indelible mark, especially in the dark, damp, and neglected spaces of the old aquarium. The shift from a place of public enjoyment to a decaying ruin created the perfect breeding ground for supernatural tales. The lingering presence isn't attributed to a single, identifiable ghost, but rather a collection of restless energies. It's said to be haunted by the echoes of those who once worked there, or perhaps the spirits of the very creatures that lived and died within its tanks, or even the shadows of the unfulfilled hopes and dreams of the palace's creators and patrons. The horror here is subtle, a pervasive sense of melancholy, a feeling of being watched, and the unnerving chill of a place where life once thrived but now only decay and memory remain. The ruins of the Coogee Palace, particularly the remnants of the aquarium, have been a magnet for paranormal investigators and curious thrill-seekers for decades. While much of the original structure is gone, the remaining foundations, underground tunnels, and concrete tanks are where the most unsettling reports originate. Maintenance workers and local security personnel who have had to venture into these remaining sections, particularly at night, report a range of unsettling phenomena. They speak of unexplained noises, disembodied footsteps echoing in empty corridors, the faint sound of splashing water when no water source is present, and even the distant, melancholic strains of what sounds like old-time carnival music or muffled laughter, emanating from places where no sound system exists. More chilling are the visual phenomena. Some report seeing fleeting shadows moving in their peripheral vision, especially in the darker, more confined spaces of the old tanks. There are accounts of cold spots that move and shift, even on warm nights, and the strong, distinct smell of salt water or ozone, despite the sea being a distance away and the tanks long dry. The most terrifying reports involve brief, indistinct glimpses of what appear to be aquatic creatures, large, dark shapes swimming in the empty air of the former tanks, or fleeting glimpses of eyes watching from the darkened recesses. Visitors who manage to access these restricted areas, despite warnings, often describe an overwhelming sense of oppression or dread. It's the feeling of 1,000 forgotten lives, 1,000 unrealized dreams, trapped within the decaying concrete. The Coogee Palace Ghost, or perhaps more accurately, the ghosts of its grand aquarium, are not aggressive entities. Instead, they are the mournful echoes of a forgotten era, a haunting reminder that even places of pure pleasure can become vessels for lingering sorrow and the spectral remains of lost ambition. 4. The Curlew's Cry, a harvester of souls. In the vast, silent theatre of the Australian bush, not all horrors are seen. Some are heard. A sound so distinctive, so mournful, it can chill you to the bone, even on the warmest night. This is the sound of the bush stone curlew, and its cry is steeped in a folklore that speaks of death, sorrow, and the harvesting of human souls. The bush stone curlew, or whaler as it's often called, is a terrestrial bird native to Australia. Its natural habitat is open woodland and grasslands, and it's primarily nocturnal. Before it became a harbinger of doom, its unique call was simply a part of the night symphony of the bush. It's a loud, drawn-out wail, often described as sounding like a human cry or a child in distress, sometimes interspersed with quicker, sharper notes. For generations of Aboriginal people, and later for European settlers, this call was a familiar part of the outback night. It was a bird of caution, perhaps, its shyness and nocturnal habits lending it an air of mystery, but not yet of malevolence. As European settlement expanded, and as the colonists grappled with the harsh realities and vastness of the new land, the curlew's unsettling call began to take on a darker meaning. Its eerie, human-like wail, heard in the dead of night when all else was still, became inextricably linked with death and impending tragedy. It's a common belief, particularly among older generations and those deeply connected to rural Australia, that to hear the curlew's cry close to your home is an omen of death. This isn't a story of a malevolent spirit or a monstrous creature. Instead, the horror lies in the curlew's role as a messenger, a chilling prophet. It's the sound itself that is the terror, portending an inevitable loss. The folklore deepened to suggest that the curlew doesn't just predict death, but somehow participates in it, or is a spiritual entity that collects souls. Some even believe the bird's call is the very lament of the dying, or the sound of their soul being drawn away. While not a ghost story in the traditional sense, the haunted aspect of the curlew's cry lies in its psychological impact and the uncanny coincidences many have reported. People don't see a spectral curlew, they hear its chilling call, and then, shortly after, tragedy strikes. Countless anecdotal accounts circulate in rural communities across Australia. People describe hearing the distinct, sorrowful wail of the curlew in the dead of night, sometimes directly outside a window, or even seemingly inside their own home, when no bird should be there. They often describe a profound sense of dread that washes over them, a premonition of something terrible. The horror comes when, within days or sometimes hours of hearing that unsettling call, news arrives of a death. It might be a family member, a neighbor, or someone they know from the community. There are chilling stories of a curlew wailing outside a hospital window just before a patient passes, or its cry echoing from a nearby bushland immediately before a fatal accident is reported. These aren't isolated incidents. The belief is so widespread because so many people have personally experienced or known someone who has experienced this chilling sequence of events. The fear isn't of the bird itself, but of the knowledge it brings. It's the horror of an inescapable fate, announced by a creature of the night. The curlew's cry is a constant, subtle reminder that death is never far, and sometimes, the universe sends its own, unsettling messengers to announce its arrival. It's the sound that tells you, a soul is about to be lost. 3. The fish's ghost, the apparition of justice. Not all Australian ghosts linger in the bush. Some haunt the very foundations of our towns, tied to deeds of darkness and the unwavering human quest for justice. Our next story takes us to Campbelltown, a town southwest of Sydney, where the chilling spectre of a murdered man refused to rest until his killer was brought to account. This is the enduring legend of Frederick Fisher, more famously known as the Fisher's Ghost. The story of Frederick Fisher is rooted in grim reality, dating back to 1826. Fisher was a prosperous farmer in the burgeoning colonial settlement of Campbelltown. He owned a substantial farm, a decent amount of money, and was known to be a man of some standing in the community. His life, however, was about to take a dark turn. He had a neighbor, a man named George Worrell, who owed him money. What started as a simple debt spiraled into a fatal confrontation. On June 17, 1826, Frederick Fisher disappeared. Worrell quickly claimed that Fisher had left the colony, abandoning his farm and possessions. He even tried to sell off Fisher's property, fueling suspicion among the townsfolk. Despite the concerns of Fisher's friends and neighbors, the local authorities were initially reluctant to act. Fisher was presumed to have simply left, a not uncommon occurrence in the transient early days of the colony. But some believed something far more sinister had occurred. What makes Fisher's story unique, and so deeply embedded in Australia's ghostly lore, is what happened next. Weeks, then months, passed with no sign of Fisher. Then, in October of 1826, a local farmer named John Farley reported an extraordinary encounter. He claimed that while walking near a creek on Fisher's farm, he saw the unmistakable apparition of Frederick Fisher. Farley described Fisher as looking distressed, his hand pointing towards a particular spot near the creek. The ghost appeared to him multiple times, always pointing to the same location. Terrified but compelled, Farley eventually relayed his chilling experiences to the authorities. Skeptical but intrigued by the persistence of the claims and the strange circumstances surrounding Fisher's disappearance, the police decided to investigate the spot the ghost allegedly indicated. What they found solidified the legend and sent shivers down the spines of everyone in the colony. Exactly where the spectral finger had pointed, they discovered Frederick Fisher's body, hastily buried in a shallow grave. The evidence at the scene, combined with Worrell's suspicious behavior and his attempt to profit from Fisher's disappearance, led to his immediate arrest. George Worrell was subsequently tried and convicted of Fisher's murder, largely due to the discovery of the body and the circumstantial evidence that piled up against him. He was hanged for his crime, a direct consequence of the ghostly intervention. The impact of this case was profound. It wasn't just a local sensation, it was an instance where an alleged supernatural event directly led to the solving of a murder and the conviction of a killer. To this day, the story of Fisher's ghost is celebrated annually in Campbelltown with the Festival of Fisher's Ghost, a testament to its enduring power. While the initial, dramatic appearances by the ghost ceased after justice was served, the area around Fisher's Creek and even parts of Campbelltown itself are still considered active. People report cold spots, sudden drops in temperature, and the unsettling feeling of being watched, particularly near the site of the original farm. Some claim to have seen a fleeting, indistinct figure in period clothing, especially on misty mornings or late evenings, always appearing sorrowful, never threatening. It's a chilling reminder that some wrongs cry out for redress, and sometimes, the dead simply won't rest until it's delivered. 2. The Pilliga Princess, the vanishing bride of the Outback. The Australian bush holds its secrets close, especially the vast, ancient forests that stretch for miles. And few places hold more chilling whispers than the Pilliga Scrub, a wilderness in northern New South Wales, where the trees stand sentinel over a story of beauty, despair, and a disappearance that haunts the very air. This is the legend of the Pilliga Princess. Before she became a ghostly legend, the Pilliga Princess was simply a woman, often depicted as young, beautiful, and deeply in love. The exact details vary, but the core of her story is a tragic romance. Some say she was a bride, traveling with her groom or on her way to her wedding, through the dense and often disorienting Pilliga. Others suggest she was a young woman eloping, or perhaps seeking a new life in the isolated frontier. What's consistent is that she was meant to be happy, to embark on a joyful future. Her fate, however, was sealed by the unforgiving nature of the bush. She became separated from her companions, lost in the labyrinthine scrub. Whether she wandered off, was abandoned, or met with an accident, no one truly knows. The search for her was extensive, but futile. The bush swallowed her whole, leaving no trace. Her story became a somber reminder of the dangers of the wilderness, a testament to how quickly hope can be consumed by the vast indifference of nature. As time passed, the tragedy of the lost bride began to intertwine with the deep-seated fears of the isolated bush. The Pilliga, already known for its ruggedness and the occasional disappearance, provided fertile ground for the legend to take root and bloom into something truly unsettling. Her memory transformed from a simple loss into a spectral presence. The Pilliga Princess became the eternal wanderer, forever searching for her lost love, her wedding day, or perhaps simply a way out of the scrub that became her tomb. She is seen not as a malicious entity, but a profoundly sad one, a manifestation of heartbreak and endless searching. Her story evolved into a chilling caution, not just about getting lost, but about the despair that can linger in places of profound sorrow. The Pilliga Scrub is notorious for strange occurrences, and many of them are attributed to the princess. While documented real haunted incidents are subjective, the experiences reported by those who venture into the Pilliga are numerous and deeply unsettling. Travelers, particularly those driving through the Pilliga late at night, often report seeing a lone figure on the side of the road. She's described as a woman, sometimes in a flowing white or light-colored dress, or what appears to be a faded bridal gown. She often has long, dark hair, and her face is frequently obscured, or she simply stares out into the darkness with an expression of profound emptiness. Drivers claim she appears suddenly, sometimes seeming to float rather than walk. Some have swerved to avoid her, only for her to vanish into thin air. Others report looking in their rearview mirror, only to see her standing there, staring after them, before disappearing. Truck drivers, seasoned and hardened by the long roads, speak of a profound chill that permeates their cabs when she's sighted, a feeling of overwhelming sadness and dread. There are also tales from campers and bushwalkers deep within the scrub. They speak of inexplicable cold spots, even on warm nights. Some have woken to the faint sound of weeping, or the rustle of fabric just outside their tents, only to find nothing there. Others have seen what they believe is her face, fleetingly, in the dappled light of the forest, or a flash of white disappearing between the trees. The encounters are rarely aggressive. Instead, they are filled with a deep, consuming melancholy that can linger for days. It's the horror of eternal grief, lost and alone in an endless wilderness. The Pilliga Princess remains. A haunting echo in the vast, silent bush, forever searching, forever lost, a reminder that sometimes, the most profound horrors are born not of malice, but of unimaginable heartbreak. 1. Tiddalik the Frog, the thirsty horror. Australia, a land ancient and full of whispers, holds stories woven into its very dust. Many are tales of creation, of lessons learned, but some hint at a deeper, more primal fear. Our story begins not with a ghost, but with a greed so vast, it brought the world to its knees. This is the legend of Tiddalik the Frog, an aboriginal dreaming story from the Kooji people. Before it became a tale whispered with a shiver, it was a story of the world's beginnings, a cautionary fable about the delicate balance of nature. In the Dreamtime, when the world was still new and the laws of nature were being laid down, Tiddalik was just a frog, albeit an enormous one. One day, Tiddalik awoke with an unquenchable thirst. He drank and drank, not just from a puddle, or a billabong, but from every river, every lake, every stream. The water levels dropped, the land cracked, and soon, all the fresh water in the world was gone. The animals and plants began to wither, their cries echoing across a parched earth. This was Tiddalik's original sin, an act of immense, thoughtless consumption that threatened all life. The other animals, desperate and dying, gathered to find a solution. They tried to make him laugh, hoping to make him release the water, but nothing worked. Then, a wise old eel suggested a plan. He began to dance, twisting and contorting in the most ridiculous way possible. Tiddalik, despite himself, began to chuckle. The chuckle grew into a giggle, then a laugh, and finally, a booming, unrestrained guffaw. And with each laugh, torrents of water poured from his mouth, refilling the rivers and lakes, bringing life back to the dying land. The immediate danger passed, and Tiddalik returned to being a regular frog. But the story itself evolved. Over countless generations, the memory of that terrifying drought, that absolute power held by a single creature, began to take on a darker hue. The sheer scale of Tiddalik's consumption, the desperate vulnerability of all other life, lodged itself in the collective unconscious. Modern retellings, especially those venturing into the realm of horror, see Tiddalik not just as a creature of thirst, but as a potential harbinger of doom. What if he were to awaken again? What if his thirst returned, not just for water, but for something more sinister? The fear transforms from a simple drought into an existential dread. While Tiddalik isn't typically associated with traditional hauntings in the sense of a lingering spirit, the horror of Tiddalik lies in the potential for a natural force to become an overwhelming, destructive entity. Instead of a ghost, imagine the chilling feeling of an inexplicable absence. There are whispers among those who venture deep into the remote outback, stories of places where water should be, but isn't. Not just dry creek beds from a typical drought, but ancient, sacred waterholes suddenly, inexplicably, bone dry. Farmers have reported wells that once flowed abundantly, now nothing but dust. Indigenous elders speak of a lingering sense of unease in certain drought-stricken areas, a feeling that the land itself remembers the great thirst. Consider the accounts from prospectors in isolated regions during extreme droughts. They speak of the land breathing a dry, hot breath, of hallucinating the sound of water gurgling, only to find nothing. Some have even claimed to hear a low, resonant croak emanating from deep within the earth, a sound that vibrates through their bones, bringing with it an overwhelming, suffocating thirst. It's not a ghost you see, but a presence you feel, the enduring memory of an immense, consuming hunger that once threatened to swallow the world whole. The legend of Tiddalik reminds us that some horrors aren't about what has happened, but what could happen again. The thirst, the consumption, the potential for ultimate emptiness, it still lurks, deep within the ancient heart of the land.